Hello, everyone. Welcome to the In Search of Something Different podcast. And now we have a special guest here, Dana, my friend. Welcome, Dana, on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to approach such an important topic with you today.
Yeah, me too. All right. Yes, it's not going to be an easy topic, but I was really happy that you said yes and that I know you, and then I can ask someone about this. So I feel that with our lifestyle, there is a big topic and there is a big taboo with our lifestyle, and it is about fertility. And I think you're such an amazing representative of this topic, not only because you have scientific background and also a career background, but also because you're also a nomad. So I think you're the go-to person when you're talking about this with your lifestyle. But it's not only for nomads. It's not a question only for nomads. It's also for anybody who just needed a little bit more time to make decisions. But let's not run away that much. Can you just tell a little bit about your background? Like, what did you work and why did I say that you're so professional in this field?
Yeah, how did I become so involved with fertility? I'm a former patient coordinator. This role puts you in a fertility clinic, working directly with patients and guiding them at the beginning of their fertility journey. I did this for a while before becoming a full-time traveler, and it equipped me with two important pieces of information. One, it's important to talk about fertility before it becomes a problem. And second, we don't do it enough. There is a huge informational gap that later translates into lost time, into lost opportunities, into lost money. And we'll see this a bit later. So I decided to close that gap by creating an educational program for women interested in egg freezing and another for couples who are starting to suspect they might need assisted reproduction. And here we are today. So basically, I created this educational program using the hands-on information I gathered directly from patients from all over the world, from women who most often than not learned a bit too late about egg freezing. So yeah, I made it in a way my mission to steer this conversation around, to make people think about it, and most importantly, to empower them to make decisions that are in line with their lifestyle, with their ideas of motherhood, with their ideas of family planning. So that would be it in very shortly.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let's just get to the most dramatic question that I think there is. When is it too late? When do you think it's too late?
Well, that's a very, very personal, the question is super important and super valid. And I think it will be the focus of our conversation today. The answer, however, is very personal. Just to start a bit with the numbers, the ideal age for egg freezing, so for fertility preservation, is between 27 years old and 34 years old. However, if we look at the data, most procedures are done in women from 35 to 40. So we can already see that there's a big gap between these ages. It's too late when your ovarian reserve is very low and doctors will advise against the procedure. However, I think we should keep it in an optimistic note and rather ask ourselves when it is time. This is one of the questions that I get the most from my clients. When is it time to think about it? And my answer to this is now. You should think about it now. But it's not that easy. From a fertility standpoint, the best years we have are in our 20s. But we have to be honest. Many women in their 20s, they don't think about having children, or even if they do, they say, well, I have plenty of time left. And the sad part is that even if you go to a specialist, to a gynecologist, for example, and you ask them, is it time? Look, I heard about this egg freezing. Should I look into it? unfortunately, most of them will discourage you and say the same thing. Let nature run its course. It's plenty of time ahead. The truth is, however, we shouldn't nature run its course, because nature can be very cruel. And despite us feeling young and full of life and healthy, because we are, fertility doesn't really agree with us. So from a fertility standpoint, in our late 20s, it would be an ideal time. But then you also have to be financially ready, right? There's cost associated to this procedure. It's not covered by insurance in many situations. So you have to look in your wallet and say, am I equipped to invest in this, to invest in my future fertility? And the third aspect that we most often dismiss is that we have to be emotionally ready as well. There's so much preconception about how motherhood should look like, about how becoming a mother should look like, right? So we have to look inside of us and see, am I ready to do this? And I know you have an amazing story about this, and about how much we carry with us, not even knowing that it's there, about motherhood. So once we have this three cleared, I think it's easy to learn when is it time for us. When is it the right time for us?
I think it's so important that we talk about this, because first of all, if you think about it, you get your period between age like 11 to like 15. So that means if you talk about nature, that's when you're ready. But the social part has moved, like even I think like 10 years compared to my parents' generation. And it's because we have, us women, we have so much possibilities, and we have now education, and we are involved with the society a little bit more equal than even my mother's generation, like not to talk about my grandmother's generation. So of course it's natural that it's being pushed out a little bit. And then I really don't want to, definitely don't want to blame either gender on this. This is a thing that we are experiencing. And we also, as you mentioned, we look younger. Like if you see like how your parents looked in close to their 40s, it's not how
we look
like. Not how we look like. Yes, and we have less stress as well. We have so much more freedom. So I was in the point of thinking that I have more time, right? Because I thought just what you say, like I am healthy, I feel healthy, like I'm sure it should be okay. I didn't even dare to ask the question from my mom, when did she start her menopause? I didn't even started that conversation with my mom, which would be a crucial conversation, because she actually started her menopause really early, like 42, 43.
Yeah, and that's a good indicator. That's a good indicator for fertility.
Exactly. But it became such a taboo. And then now that you brought up my story, I would like to tell this story for everyone. And actually really thank you for the possibility that I can talk about this, because I never wrote an article. I never actually came out with this, but with you, I feel who else would be a better person to talk about this than you? So my story was, it started in Lisbon. It was all the circumstances went in a way that I needed to go to Lisbon. And then I was having a female, like a girls' night out, like just only a dinner. And she was turning 38. She was like, so you're turning 38, are you thinking about freezing your eggs? And my reaction was that I gotta go and punch this girl. Like,
how dare she?
I was out of my mind. I'm like, how dare she ask this question out in public? Like, what the hell? And then when I saw my friend reacting like completely normal, saying like, yeah, I'm thinking about it, maybe not, I don't know. Then I was just like completely numb, like, are we allowed to talk about this? And then the conversation went on, and I couldn't bear with it. So then I decided to speak up and then ask everybody to shut up. And then I felt, okay, this is interesting, because I'm actually right now I'm running a podcast, and I was a blogger before, so I thought I'm really curious, but it was such a taboo in me that I needed to stop a conversation. And that was such an indicator for me to finally go and talk to a therapist about this. I was really lucky. My therapist was coming in the appointment was in 2 days. So then I told this therapist, like, so this is what happened. Like, apparently there is like a big, like a big topic around this. And what I told her was that I feel ashamed, and I feel that we arrived to the point that we were playing outside too long, and now we are too late. We need to go for plan Bs. And then she said something super important. And then the important was like, all the decisions that you made up until now, including all the breakups, all the career choices, everything, all the lifestyle choices that you made, would you change them? And hell no, I'm really happy where I am. So then she said that maybe it's not a plan A. It's not a plan B. It's a plan A for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I'm like, I'm booking an appointment. Yeah. And then actually I needed to face something super difficult, and like God sent you, because you were accidentally
it was an amazing coincidence.
We knew each other before. Crazy. And because it turned out that I was I would say just like pretty much the right moment. It's like I could have gone 27. I wish I would have gone 27. I need to go 2 rounds, which was more expensive than I expected. And I need to go 2 rounds. And the first round we only could freeze 4 eggs, which is really low. And the second time it was 7. So now I have 11 eggs frozen, which is still a huge gamble. But the perspective that it gave to me, that I'm no longer going on dates thinking what's gonna happen.
This is it. Yeah, exactly. My biological clock is ticking behind of, in the back of my mind. And I think it's this that you actually get, this peace of mind, the safety net, and a choice to continue making your life as you want it, not as your biology dictates.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not that we are, because some people say that, yeah, but if you're nature, if life wants you that and nature doesn't want that, there's so many people who want to have kids in like their late 30s or early 40s even. And it's the same procedure. And then we don't talk about this. Like the fact that you're freezing your eggs is actually just the first part. Can you say a little bit about this part of the procedure?
Yes, you're exactly right. So basically, the procedure of freezing your eggs is the first step of an IVF procedure. Egg freezing has lost the experimental denomination pretty recently. However, we've been doing IVF for quite some time, and there are a lot of children born of IVF. However, egg freezing was considered experimental for a long time. Only less than a decade ago, it has entered the normal use of medicine. And so this is why it seems like, wow, this is this new thing that didn't exist. Actually, it does exist, because it is the first step of an IVF procedure, which is the hormonal stimulation. So the treatment that you have to administer to prepare your body for the collection of eggs, and the actual collection of eggs, followed by the freezing of the eggs. The procedure itself is not difficult. It does come with some risks, and I will cover them shortly. But there's so many myths around it. I speak to my clients, and a lot of them wonder, but I will put all those hormones in me. I don't know what there's too much. I don't know how it will affect me. And this is one of the most common questions that I get. And the answer to that is that the hormones that you use during the hormonal stimulation, they're actually mimicking the hormones that you normally have in your body. The only reason you put more of them is to produce more eggs, because on a normal cycle, you'd have 1 or 2 eggs, but the purpose here is to have as many as possible. So we mustn't look at it as this, boogeyman, these hormones that are so bad, they will destroy my body forever, because it's not the case. The treatment usually lasts around 2 weeks before you're ready for the egg collection. The egg collection is done under mild anesthesia. The recovery period is just basically 1 or 2 days in worst case, and then you're ready to go. So that's one of the myths I'm trying to break about egg freezing, and wow, it's so so challenging for the body. We have made huge progress, and I think it's safer than ever to do the procedure. It's the same with the freezing of the eggs in recent years, and this was the biggest breakthrough that allowed for egg freezing to exist today, was the method to freeze the eggs. The biggest problem with freezing the eggs was that they would get destroyed during freezing, and then the scientists have discovered what's called vitrification, which is an amazing process that basically doesn't allow for the forming of crystal around the egg, making it super safe to keep it frozen for virtually forever. So these two breakthroughs allowed us to have this conversation today. The improvement of hormonal treatments and this amazing process called vitrification that basically says your eggs will be safe and they will survive this process of being frozen and thawed and fertilized later.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about, because that for me that was a really, really interesting new knowledge. When the first, and then this is what I keep suggesting to everyone, because that was insane for me, that only from your blood you can tell more or less how much is your reserve. Can you tell a little bit about this?
Exactly. Another myth is, oh my God, I don't have time to go and put myself through so many tests, and I just don't have time. I travel, I have my business running. It's just, but actually, like you said, it's just one blood test that starts it all. The hormone that we're measuring, it's called anti-Mullerian hormone, or AMH. You can go to a fertility clinic, or you can go to the local lab and ask for the test. They will take blood and you will get your results pretty soon. And this will basically give you an image of on the ovarian reserve. How many eggs do you have left for a potential stimulation? This is the basis for your treatment later. And it's absolutely essential into even helping you make up your mind whether you want children or not. I would say that's, if there will be one piece of advice out of this episode of your podcast, I want it to be, go and test your AMH. Even if you don't want to egg freeze your eggs, even if you think I don't want children forever, test it. Information is power. It will put you on the right track to making informed decisions about your next years. So just a blood test, just a little sting with the needle, and you might get information that will change your life.
Yeah, it's crazy because many people, like, we can, with this little information that nobody tells us, and I accidentally found this information could have saved so much more time for me in the beginning of my 30s or at the end of my 20s, because unfortunately my number was radically low. So when I went and tested, my number was 0.72, which is under 1 is already like critical. So already my gynecologist in Lisbon, where I did the procedure, she was like, we still can do it, but yeah, it's good that you're here. And I really wish that somebody would, if I would bump into a podcast before and somebody would tell me that. And then it doesn't actually mean that I actually am going to use these eggs. That's another thing that we can talk about. I might be donating them, because that's an option that you can donate them. But the peace of mind that these information, like, first of all, that you're running out, you should do it now. And then I still will be able to figure this out. Here's another thing that I think many people have as like maybe a myth, or maybe something that I was thinking before doing the procedure, is can we be moms when we are 40? Like, how long can we use these eggs? Like, when can I be a mom when I'm not going to be able to be a mom?
Oh, there are so many interesting aspects about this question, and it's super valuable. And I think it's one of the reasons for the complexity of the topic. Theoretically, we can keep the eggs frozen on an unlimited period of time. We don't really have data about eggs, because as I was saying, the procedure has lost the experimental domination pretty recently. However, we do have information about embryos that were frozen and reused after 27 years.
Wow.
So a little girl, she was born healthy. The pregnancy went amazing. It happened in the US quite recently. She was born out of a 27-year-old embryo. So we have this data for embryos. Only now we're gathering the data for eggs, but it's pretty promising, and it's promising because of this process called vitrification. So from the standpoint of the health of your eggs, specialists will say forever. However, there are other aspects to take into account. One important aspect is the legal aspect. Each country at the moment has a limit in concerns with in regards to the age of the mother at the time of the embryo transfer. So based on your plans or based on how you see yourself, on when you think it's the last time you want to consider becoming a mother, you should also, when you choose your clinic or the country where you want to do the procedure, you should ask them about this legal aspect, which is, how long can I keep this stored, and what's the age limit for embryo transfer? And the third aspect, equally important, is the state of your general health and the health of your uterus. I recommend my clients to do regular checkups and make sure everything is okay, because the conditions where this egg fertilized into an embryo comes, they're equally important. So you have to be healthy. You have to continue to have a healthy body and to have a healthy uterus for a pregnancy to take place. So again, it's a very, very personal decision, but and it will involve questions about, am I too old? Do I still have the vitality of, raising a child, having a newborn? But these are very personal decisions. The only thing that I can say is that by choosing to do this, and like you chose to do the procedure, you gave yourself the time to think about all these questions. And you give yourself this option, even if, like you said, there's also this option where you never use the eggs, and you donate them or you destroy them or whatever happens. You gave yourself the chance of asking yourself these questions later in life. So yeah, that I think would be the main aspect that people should take into account when looking, when am I using these eggs, or if
and
I'm
I think
using these eggs.
It's really good, and I think there's another aspect that people can consider. It's you might think that you're going to live until 70, because that's what we always been taught, that the average life expectancy is like 70. But with the technology that arrived like 20 years ago in the healthcare, and then how health conscious we are, like this generation, millennial generation, Gen X, alphas even. We are way more health conscious than we were before. So I would actually say that it starts to seem that we are going to be pushing out this limit with decades. So it's not. This was one of the game changers for me when somebody, because this was the thing that I was saying, like, okay, but what if I am not going to live about like 70, and there's this 20-something-year-old.
And that becomes an orphan.
Clearly grown up, and then I'm not going to be able to help. But eventually, I think we are just going to be living a little bit longer. So I think, therefore, it's super important we talk about this, because we plan to live longer, but our uterus and our ovaries do not know that. That it's not going to be.
They didn't get the memo. They didn't get the memo. That's for sure. So that's the tricky part. But yeah. So for egg freezing might come and be a total game changer, because you're right. Our life expectancy is increasing. We're losing a lot of bad habits that were the most wanted killers, you know, like smoking. Fewer people are now smoking, drinking. We become more conscious. We become more health conscious, as you all said. So definitely the age for being able to carry the pregnancy will be pushed forward. At the moment, in most European countries, we are looking at 49 years of age. So that would be more or less, so take plus minus 2 years, it's 49 years of age, the limit for being able to carry pregnancy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's
so there
crazy.
is time, there is definitely time, there's a lot of life in between, and it's important to be able to live it, you know, in your own terms. And I think another aspect that always comes up with egg freezing is, should everybody do it? No, not necessarily, but everybody should be informed of the possibility and of the options they have in front of them.
It gives us the possibility to live our life according to our terms, and it doesn't really matter that you don't know that you're going to use it or not. And but can you imagine the scenario that you find someone with whom you feel like, right, actually I didn't want to have kids, but now I changed my mind, for example, and then you face the numbers, and it turns out that maybe it's not possible, or you want to do IVF. So how I see that, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to need to do IVF if I want kids, and then I'm just going to use the eggs that I had when I was younger than when I'm 40.
This is actually super important that you mentioned, because yes, in order to use these eggs, you will need to return to that clinic where you have the eggs, and you will have to basically finish the process of an IVF procedure. Which means that the eggs will be fertilized in vitro in the lab, they will be cultivated in the lab, and then they will be transferred into your uterus. So basically, altogether, it will form the process of an IVF procedure. Another aspect that always comes up is about the moving of these eggs, because a lot of people, when they decide to do the egg freezing and then they choose the country where to go, they're a bit overwhelmed, like how do I know where I should go? And cost is usually an important factor. But then I always ask them to think about whether they have ties with that country, whether it's easy to travel there, whether it's a stable country, you know, economically, geopolitically, whether it's an easy access to their eggs. Because moving of eggs is possible, and most clinics will tell you it's possible. However, in practice, it's a bit more complicated. So definitely, it's an important decision that seems overwhelming, but it can be, you know, broken down into pieces. But it's important to know that your eggs are safe and in a place where you can access them easily, because you will have to return. And you chose Lisbon, which is an amazing place for it's one of the places that I recommend as well, because it's fairly cheap. I mean, as compared to, for example, the US or
I think it is cheap, yeah.
It is, yes. And it's a stable country. It's a beautiful place to be. For nomads, it's one of the most important hubs. Like, it is the city of nomads. So it is one of the places that definitely should be taken into account if one of your listeners is considering. I would definitely say take a look at Lisbon. It's
talking about the prices, just to have a ballpark. I did it like 2 years ago, and the whole procedure was 2,500 euros plus the medications. That I didn't. Somebody told me before that it's going to be a shocker, but I was prepared to walk into a pharmacy and pay. I think first round was 400. I paid 800. Yeah,
800.
The meds were 800. Yeah. And I'm standing there with my credit card, like, I didn't get ready with this.
Like, it will ask for a PIN for sure.
And then they're like, right, how far do you live? I'm like, I lived on the other side of the whole city. And then I'm like, well, quite far. And then they're like, well, this needs to be in the fridge in like 35 minutes. So I felt like, I don't know, in an action movie, just like getting on a scooter and then just like driving super fast home to take my hormones home. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a
So
bit,
altogether,
it is a bit of an adventure, yeah, with the hormones. So.
oh yeah. And the whole thing is like 3,300. For my second round, we needed to have different, that's when your help was really useful. Because we put together an email, like, or just like a questionnaire for my clinic of asking why it was, I think we took out in the first round, we took out 9 eggs, and out of that only 4 we could freeze.
Yeah.
And that was, the thing is that my body was a little bit slower in harvesting. So we needed a little bit more time, so we were too early, and we need different medications. And then that's like, that's also a luck game. I was quite unlucky with this, that my body worked a little bit different. But now that was such a good news, because second time I went back, they already know how my body works, so we could calculate better of how it's going to turn out.
It is. It's true that it's not a. We wish it would be, but it's not an exact science, and every patient will react differently to the same medication, and even like in your case, you would react differently from one cycle to another, because the doctor will tweak the treatment in order to adapt to the actual reaction. Yeah. So this is why it's super important to get all these little pieces of information, like your AMH or other hormones, and speak as soon as possible with a fertility specialist, so they can tell you, this is what we can do. Yeah. This is our approach. And it's something that I wanted to mention earlier, because when we started today's episode, we said that the lack of conversation makes you lose time and money. And it's exactly what happened in your case, because at the younger age, with a bigger hormonal reserve, you would have probably just needed 1 cycle of stimulation. Whereas the more we wait, and the more the ovarian, the smaller the ovarian reserve, we might need multiple cycles of stimulation. And that is something that I think people should know, because it's not just wasted time in a metaphorical sense. It's a waste of time in the real sense. When you see your values dropping and saying, God damn, if I knew like 2 years ago, I would have probably paid half, or I would have gotten double my eggs. Yeah. So I think that's the real reason behind, let's talk about this, and let's talk about, without shame. And despite what, society taught us, it's taboo to speak about women's problems. Let's keep it hidden. Let's not talk about it. It's shameful, because your reaction that you mentioned earlier doesn't happen in a void. You didn't just wake up and say, oh, I find this shameful. This is years and years of society telling us you shouldn't speak about these things in public. Or, if it's not meant to be. Well, the thing is, then, to this with it's not meant to be, a lot of things, medicine goes against it's not meant to be. Wearing glasses goes against it's not meant to be. So where do we, why do we pick and choose? We can wear glasses, but we cannot speak about our eggs. So the more we have this conversation, the more other women and younger generations will feel comfortable of asking the right questions at the younger age. And I think they will just be more equipped to make their own decisions. Yeah, 100%. You make so much sense when you say these glasses is hilarious. But I was thinking that we're being put in a situation as women, and we will talk about guys in a minute as well. But the fact that it's like society tells you, if you're like normal society, let's just put it this way, but if you're not married, and you don't have a family as a woman by 35, then you're useless in many cases. And we need to say this out, that this is hidden in the lines, and you're useless for the society. And that's what they put. So many amazing women doing so many amazing things besides raising a family. So I'm not saying that it's the only thing that a woman can do, but on the other hand,
we are also being extremely judged when we are being pushy in a relationship of getting married and getting kids, because oh, this girl is super pushy right now. Oh my God, like fucking chill. Sorry about my language, but like chill, like you don't go on a first date and ask about marriage, and you don't ask about kids. Why not? Why not? There's like biological things, and if you measure this on the first sight. So there's even shame about talking about this when you want, and then when you don't want, it's also shameful. When you're too old, it's also shameful. Of course, when you're too young, it's also shameful. So there's so much things around it, and I think life is just working its own ways out, and then you can only play with the tools that you've been given. And this is an amazing tool that we have.
It's exactly this. It's a tool, and it's an individual decision how we use it, but we mustn't pretend it doesn't exist, or we mustn't pretend it's like an enemy of romance or an enemy of, natural fertilization, because, it's not. It's just, it's a tool. And we should learn how it works, like with the computer, we should know what buttons to touch. And we should learn what it can do for us, and then we should decide whether or not it is for us. And it's I think it's a sign of emotional maturity as well, to be able to discuss this. And this is probably a different conversation about emotional maturity and how many things we need to shed in order to be able to have this conversation. But why I mentioned emotional maturity is because I'm a strong supporter of people having children when they have figured out their stuff. And many people would say, oh, you're delaying motherhood for your career, and this is bad or is not bad, or delaying it for travel. But delaying it for being able to heal from generational trauma, for example, and not carrying it into a next generation is reason enough to delay motherhood, and to use this tool that we have available and say, I need to process my own stuff before, I create life. And that's
and then those people who dare to stand up and then say like, okay, this relationship is super similar to the previous relationship, but I always get hurt the same way. And then by the time you realize that you're going through a generational trauma and you're repeating what your ancestors probably did, and there's something that you need to heal. And then we have all sorts of amazing tools how you can heal these traumas now. If you just want to look into Mate Gabor's work and about trauma information and living a trauma-informed society and being in a trauma-informed society, I think this is a generation where we are right now who actually figures out that no, I don't want to put down my children on the same line that's been, at least I want to stop some of them. Like I know that I will not be able to stop all of them, but
of course,
at least
at least you'll give it a fighting chance, to start with a clean slate and not just carry around the burden that was put on you by other generations. And to me, this alone is such a valid reason to look into ways of preserving our fertility for later in life. Yeah, you said, however, that you would like to speak about guys.
Yes. I was just about to start into it, because I think we talk about women, and I really hope that there is going to be a man listening to this podcast as well, because there is a difference on how much time we have and they have, but it's also true that they don't have all the time on the world as well. People have this misconception that even in your 90s as a man, you will be able to become a father again, like the first time as well. Is that true? What's your point on that?
Oh, well, it's not true. Yes, there are cases, but we cannot assume that it will be the case for everybody. And probably the most important aspect here is the quality of the genetic material. And this applies to oocytes, to female eggs, and it applies to sperm cells. Even if you have the numbers, the genetic quality of our reproductive material decreases with age. So yeah, maybe in your 90s, you'd go and you'd do a spermiogram and you'd still have, you know, the normal values. But that doesn't mean the genetic quality of each sperm is there, or that it will result in a successful fertilization, a successful pregnancy. So this myth I would like to bust. No, guys, don't wait until 90, even if you might be tempted to. However, it's the same advice that I give to women. Go and test your sperm. It's an easy test. Again, you can do it in a fertility clinic. You can speak to your urologist if you don't know how to access the fertility clinic or where to go. It will give you information. And again, it happened that I started this discussion in different circles, and some of the guys said, you know something, I'm also a traveler. I also don't really know, you know, how my next years will look like, but I would like to look into this. And they were looking into freezing their sperm, which is an easier process than freezing the eggs, because you don't need the hormone stimulation. Yeah. It's pretty quick. But few of them actually ended up learning that the situation was not normal for their age even. So they learned earlier in life that they might have problems. And that's, again, a very, very good information to have, because when you learn that you might have problems in your 30s, there might be things to do. You can work with a specialist. You can look into the causes to see whether it's genetic or it's related to your lifestyle, but you can do something rather than just wait until the moment you want to have a child and you're like, oh, why isn't this happening? And then you learn then. So yeah, it's interesting, because since I started the program, I did speak with guys, and some of them said, I will freeze my sperm. And some did it successfully. Others are now investigating the causes of their lower values. But definitely it's a conversation guys need to have as well. There's no shame to it. It's easier and it's cheaper for them. You can go and you can give samples at different time points in your life. And then when the time comes, or if the time comes, the best sperm cells will be used for potential fertilization. It just gives you options.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I think this is like a mythbuster episode. I think we busted at least 10 myths around this.
Everything you thought you know about fertility.
So I think we're getting towards the end of this discussion. I don't really have many other myths to bring up, but there's one thing that I would like you to talk about still, and towards the end. What is your job and how can you help people when they're considering who is the person who should look you up and check the description where we're going to link all your info?
Well, at the moment, I can help via the 2 educational programs that I mentioned earlier that basically are meant to be a good starting point for this journey. I've seen so many people getting overwhelmed by information or by choosing their clinic and just giving up, saying, you know something, it's too much for me now to process. I don't understand these terms. I will wait 2 more years. And we saw that waiting 2 more years changes everything. So the programs that I offer under Dandelion Fertility are meant to equip you with the right information from the beginning, create a roadmap on how to interact with the clinic to make sure you're kind of escaping the marketing part and you're left with the information that's relevant to you, and basically to help you make informed decision and be more involved in your treatment. The program itself has a video component. So basically the basics of fertility, and of the procedures, you can just watch the videos at your own pace. And then we have the tools that help you ask the right questions to the clinic to get out information from them that will let you get closer to the perfect decision, the best choice for you, and then a consultation with me to figure out the last details. And a very important aspect that I would like to mention is that this is not meant to replace the doctor. I'm standing between you who just learned about the possibility, or not even, or you who just heard your friends speaking about this topic, and your first clinic to the doctor, your first visit to the clinic, in order to make this transition as short as possible and as useful as possible for you as a future fertility patient.
Okay.
That would be kind of how I can help.
That sounds amazing. And out of experience, which I accidentally bumped into, I think for me, our conversations and I also got the video material was super helpful when I felt like, who can I talk to about this? And of course I could talk about the clinic, but they were giving me 4 days of like, you can come back in 4 days, and I was devastated at what's going to happen. I had one of the lowest points of my life actually when I get back, like I remember now 10 eggs, four was only them. I'm like, what does this mean? Is it? I felt super useless, and then only like a half an hour conversation with you, I only felt like, oh wait a second, actually I have the tools, I know what to ask, I have the information. So I'm forever grateful for you that you were there for me, and then you were helpful.
It was such a beautiful coincidence. I'm really happy. I wasn't even meant to be in Lisbon, so it's really remarkable.
It was
we
crazy.
Overlapped at the perfect time. Yeah.
It was really pleasant. Yeah.
This actually, unfortunately, happens to a lot of couples and a lot of women, and the confusion, the disorientation, the lack of management expectations sometimes from the clinic. Although you were pretty lucky with your clinic, the one in Lisbon, but in most cases there's a very, very low expectation setting effort from the clinic. So a lot of people find themselves not knowing what just happened. Like I was expecting more, I was expecting something else. And I'm happy to be able to guide people at this very critical moment, which is the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, 100%. And one extra thing I think that we should tell in many countries, and this is something that you said as well, that you need to pick the country wisely. I know people who unfortunately have their eggs frozen in Ukraine. So of course for them it's super devastating. And also in Hungary it's illegal to freeze your eggs if you're not sick. If you don't have
a medical indication. Yeah, if you don't have a medical indication.
Yeah,
it is true. France is also very restrictive as to the age limit for egg freezing. But I think this is why us as travelers we're privileged, because we already have one of the difficulties of medical tourism, of just going to hopping into a country and saying I'll freeze my eggs here, is the lack of easiness with this traveling. I don't know how will I get there, I don't know how will I feel there. And I think we're privileged here because we already know how to hop from country to country. And it's true, it is an important decision, and it's part of most of my consultations. People are like, I don't know where to go. But with the right questions and with the right information from these clinics, the decision it's easier. And this is an aspect that you mentioned. Yes, Ukraine was and hopefully will continue to be a hub for IVF, one of the European hubs for IVF. And now probably people who do have eggs there are disconnected from using them. So this is why it's important to be able to access what I was mentioning, to access your eggs and have a connection to that country, for example. But it's a bigger decision, but definitely one that's important, and it's easy to take once you know what to ask.
All right. Yeah. I'm really grateful that you came for this podcast and that we had a discussion about this. I'm also really grateful that you do this job and help families being born. and also that you're busting all this myth around, and then you're spreading awareness. I'm really highly thinking of you, and I think that this podcast, as we just did, I really hope that you guys took out some of the nuggets that's important. And you're going to find all the info about Dana in the show description. So yeah, thank you so much one more time, and have a really good day. See you around.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing up such an important topic. Thank you.